Last week you thought Zach Butters was moving a little faster than first predicted. Is he what were you could even consider him this week? Is he being tested this week?
No, we'll go through it all. I mean, it's early in the week, so we've got 3 or 4 players, not just Zach, that we'd be looking at this week to see what importantly will be what all those players can get through and do on come Thursday. We've had a good little break, so we've had opportunities for the blokes who are coming back from injury and versus the blokes who have played with some sort of little issues during last week's game. So Zach's one of those players that we'll look at much more closely on Thursday. As I said last week, we're optimistic that he's getting closer, clearly. Whether that's this week or this Sunday or not, we'll wait and see.
Does he think he'll be ready for Sunday?
Zach thought he was ready 5 weeks ago. But that's Zach. So now we'll be... Look, if Zach plays, he'll be more than ready.
It goes without saying how much of a boost he is as a player, but also does it lift everyone else, not just seeing him ready to come back, but just seeing him back on the track as well?
Oh no, again, anytime you get any players back or young players play, there's always moments that bring some good energy to the place, and certainly Zach, Lockie, Ollie Lord, all those blokes that we're talking around, that if they get themselves up and about and ready to go this week, that will give us a good bit of confidence.
How is Ollie Lord?
Ollie Lord, yeah, he's again like Zach. They're moving in the right direction. We're optimistic around how they look, but there's a fair bit to tick off. They'll do a little bit of stuff today, and then they'll do hopefully a lot more on Thursday, and that will give us some answers, some really clear answers.
Does that put you, certainly for now, your 2-ruck experiment to bed?
No, it's unfair, isn't it, to 2-ruck experiment to bed. I think it's options for us to use as a selection committee when it comes to picking a team. Whether we do or we don't pick tall forwards, 2 rucks, tall backs versus small backs, those things are up every week. They're always discussed, and nothing gets put to bed. We use all our options and our opportunities whenever we need to.
How did you see it working last week?
We didn't play very well as a collective last week, whether that was a bit to do with our forward structure or our ball movement or our effort around the ball. There was lots of things that didn't make our game last week at the level we would have liked. Our method was off in lots of things, so I think it's hard to judge everything, because in my personal view, if you judged that game last week, it was it was a bit of an average game.
Ken, just on that method, with all the hits you take on the injury list, do you persist with a game plan that you've worked over the summer, or do those hits at some point say, no, we've got to change it up because you just don't have players to continue down that path?
No, I think our method's okay. I think our method's more than capable of winning AFL football. We just need to continue to chase that and to expect that at round 3 was it going to be absolutely perfect? Or no, it was not going to be. It's going to be some challenges with that, and as you said, sometimes it's personnel challenges, but ultimately we have to understand our game style and continue to chase that with the teams that we pick every week.
Vaughan Francis is going through a bit of a flat patch. Is he one of the players you need more from?
Yeah, well, flat patch is reasonable, I suppose, in to the level that he gets to. Like, he had 22, kicked a goal, had 8 score involvements, and he wasn't too far off. But clearly with a couple other players not there, we were looking for a little bit more from him. As I said after the game, some of our leaders of the team were a little bit down on their own form, and they know that and they own that. We expect that most players who play this game don't have 23 great games. They have some ups and downs.
I thought he was one of your best in the 4th quarter, Jason. Is there something you said at 3/4 time? I know you've challenged him in the past before to go out and win games.
No, I think it's the team. You're in a tough competition where the scores are really tight at 3/4 time. Everyone wants to try and bring their absolute best, and as it turned out in that game, Essendon had more of those players in the last quarter.
Do you think you're confident he's ready to be a sort of 80% midfielder? Do you think he's ready for that?
Yeah, no, I think he's ready for that, yeah.
How do you balance with your injuries to your forward line and his strengths?
Yeah.
How do you balance that, though?
Yeah, again, that's what I said before with the first one, was that you've just got to use what you've got available at the time, and then you've got to make some decisions in the moment that you think gives you the best outcomes, and that's always going to be up in the air a little bit for what the game's doing, how the game's going, what options have we got in front of the ball, what options have we got on the ball. So they're all things that we have to balance every week when we play football, and whatever the game's doing, we have to react to that as coaches, and that's our job on game day, pretty much, is to react to that stuff.
Can things change quickly in this game? Was it a month ago you beat St Kilda on their home deck quite convincingly look very good. How much has changed in that month on both fronts?
Oh, a lot changes quickly, week to week. Changes happen in this game at this level, particularly. And to St Kilda's credit, they're in some really good form and in some really good nick. They've got some personnel back that they didn't have in that game that we played them. It was a pre-season game. There's lots of reasons why things are different at this time of the year. And we've got some players that are not there as well. So there's always. But it's funny, 7 days is a long time in footy, let alone 5 weeks, which is I think maybe what it's been since we played.
I think you've gone from like first or second in tackles last season to about 18th this year. Is that? I know you've obviously lost personnel, but how much are you working on that area?
Oh no, I think they're parts of our game that we know are fundamentally make us a competitive and a good team in the AFL. And if they're off, we're going to get the results we've got in the last 3 weeks. We're 1 and 2. That's the reason, part of the reason that we may be like that. Where some of our method is off, and some of our contest stuff has been off, which it's up to us to change and rectify.
Kane mentioned effort yesterday, Farrell, and you're mentioning it as well now. So I'm sure it's $1 million question, but when that isn't there, what as coaches, what do you put?
As I said last night when I was doing some media, they're a given. They have to be a part of AFL football, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to do that. So I'd like to think more than anything for us, our method is what hurts us more than that, because I back these boys in to bring great effort all the time.
The Magpies didn't play too well against Glenelg last week. Do you have any players, though, who are pushing from there to come up?
Yeah, we've got players who are pushing clearly, but we had some personnel issues. We're playing the reigning premiers in the sample, who have got a very, very good team and a very strong team, and we had a lot less of our listed players available in that game. So that always is significant in our results often at Sample. And then when you're left to too few with the younger players, it can be a bit challenging. But the answer to your question is yes, there's certainly some senior players out there who could easily come in and play and fill roles for us really well at AFL level.
On Kane, how pleasing is it to see him recommit for such a long time to the club?
Ultimately, they're very pleasing when you get people who have been here the whole time and they see a reason to finish their career at Port Adelaide. It's really satisfying.
Will you take less of a focal point in terms of recruitment and list management this year, Ken, given that we're talking about players who won't be here next year?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable question to ask me, and yes, that's the answer to that. Is that I'll certainly still have input into that, but there's some other directions that are going to be, and voices, Josh's in particular, is going to be listened to a lot in that situation. But what we have got here is a commitment to what our footy club looks like for the future, and I'd like to think I still play a significant part of that in guiding and helping, making sure that we make good decisions for our future, because nothing please me more than to sit back and watch later at this footy club still being a very strong footy club.
Have you spoken to Zach Butters about his long-term future?
Zach Butters gets spoken about a fair bit about his long-term future. I speak to Zach about lots of things, and not necessarily his long-term future, because I just know how he feels about being at Port Adelaide.
Holistically, as a club, would you prefer players that want to maybe seek other opportunities to let you guys know as soon as possible, rather than
No, I don't think there's a need for that. I think the landscape's changing. I think we're all starting to get a bit more used to the landscape, aren't we? Where there's conversations that are going on through managements and players, and not just our players, every player in the competition, or players who are in the competition. When they reach certain stages of their career, there's going to be a lot more conversations that are going to appear to be a bit more open. I think that's actually okay for the game. I think, it's a performance industry. They're paid to play, and they go out to do the best, and they've got to maximise their opportunities whilst they're players. I mean, I think that's reasonable. Any other industry, you get to explore your opportunities, but then you get to make choices on what you do with those opportunities. And more often than not, I think, my personal view is most players stay at their footy clubs, regardless of our footy club. I think most players tend to stay at their footy clubs.
How far away are we then from player X saying, I want to leave, the club actually announces that, and says player X is going to give everything for the rest of the season?
NRL style.
NRL style.
NRL style. I don't think we're near that. Okay. I don't think we are near that. I think we're in the position of having private conversations regularly, and clubs have good information. All clubs have good information, but I don't think we're not that industry that wants to probably put that out there just yet. I'm not sure it's good or bad, to be honest, but because I've not experienced it, so I'm talking from a position of what I'm used to versus what could come.
Because my next question would be why Why isn't the industry ready, do you think?
I think we've just not experienced it, and so it's like any change that happens, you know, you have to see the change, and then you have to live with it a little bit, and then you'll form a better and a more informed opinion. I think the game's getting better at that. I'm personally one for mid-season trading and all those sorts of things. I think they only create more interest in the game and helps teams compete to their best right through a footy season.
Would that transparency make it easier for coaches and people have to front constant questions around it? I mean, Dan Houston said in an interview recently, he told you at the halfway point last year he wanted to go. You then have to come out and sort of try and put a face to that. Would it make it easier if it was more public?
No, I don't think it makes it easier. I think all of us are entitled to some private conversations, and I think that's the way they should remain. And you know, maybe we should accept that from the other side of the desk, that private conversations do have to go on, and trust that the information will be delivered back to you when we get that opportunity to do it at the right time for everyone, not just for the media.
Are you confident Butters would stay, even if you're not here next year? Obviously, everyone knows about your close relationship with him.
Yeah, yes, I am.
What makes you so confident?
I just see the way he plays, I see the way he acts. His connection to this footy club is really, really strong. He's got great relationships, and I love the way people form it to my relationship. Zach's got great relationships with this whole footy team, and he's not all his players, all his coaches. He's a pretty important piece to this footy club, and as you asked me before, I'd like to have him out there playing pretty soon.
So can you get back to your on method? What's your read on when you can get the method looking so good in St Kilda and Richmond, but not Collingwood and Essendon? What's your read on the graph of how it goes from one extreme to the other?
No, I think it's related to total commitment and seeing it through right to the very end. And you know, we're starting to get there. I think we're starting to get much more in tune with what that looks like. But occasionally we're going to make some mistakes. AFL footy forces mistakes on you. Then you've got to reset yourself, and you've got to get your belief back into this is the way we do it, and this is the way we're going to continue to do it. Live with mistakes. The game creates an enormous amount of problems for players. They have to solve them on the run quicker than we have been able to at the moment, and I think our method will stack up really well. I'm confident.
Sorry, Ken. Have you got one in Christian Moraes?
Yeah, it's a nice look. It's a nice look at what we're getting with a young player that's come through and played a couple of games. And I think we had, even last week, we had 3 18-year-olds and a 19-year-old out in our team. It's bloody exciting. I love seeing the young blokes play. I always get great belief out of that they're going to be better players, and they're going to get better quickly by playing them in the AFL, and Christian's a great example of that.
Does that give you more flexibility potentially with Burgoyne, who was obviously very, very good again?
Yeah.
Halfback?
Yeah, well, Jace has turned into a really handy player wherever we need him, and it's great credit to himself. But yeah, it does. Flexibility is a great thing, and Christian Moraes can also play inside mid, he can play half forward, he can play wing, he can play halfback if we need to. So yeah, every time you find some new talent, you create some better depth on your list, and that's ultimately what we know. And we're experienced a little bit of it already. What you know in the footy season is you've got to have depth to get to the end of the season, because what's happening now may not be happening at midpoint, probably isn't going to be happening at the end point, so we'll see what happens.
Jace has probably played maybe his 2 best games of his career in that position now, Hawthorn last year and last week.
The week before was pretty good. We had 32 and kicked 2 from the wing, so that was okay.
Well, he was better last week.
Yeah, we won the week before, so I don't know. We'll play a game of 1, 2, 3 and see what happens.
So you don't know where he is best?
Oh, I think he's a really talented player who's got great growth in him still. Right, what I'm lucky with is that I know I can play him on the wing and have success, play him at halfback and have success. I'm interested in the challenge if I played him forward or inside. That's what I'm interested in, because I think his growth is still coming. So I wouldn't like to pigeonhole him right now. Is this his best position? I think he's just growing as a player, which is exciting.